Thank you, Deputy. Mr. Chernoff, you may call your next witness.
Amir Dan Rubin, Judge.
Thank you.
Sir, please stand and raise your right hand. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated. Please state your name for the record. Spell your first and last names.
My name is Amir Dan Rubin. A-M-I-R is my first name. Rubin is my last, R-U-B-I-N.
Mr. Rubin, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me provide you with instructions which I give to every witness in every case. The first of which is to please sit back and relax. The second of which is to speak loudly so we can hear you. You may want to scoot up a little closer to the mic, although you don't have to speak right on top of it. The third is to answer questions yes or no if called upon to do so, rather than using slang. And the last is to wait until you hear an entire question before you even start to answer it, even though you think you may know the question. Wait so we don't have people speaking over each other. Is all of that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. Direct examination by the defense. Mr. Chernoff.
Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rubin, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for coming. Do you live in Los Angeles?
No.
Okay. You're up north?
Correct.
Okay. What do you do for a living, Mr. Rubin?
I'm a hospital executive.
Okay. Any particular hospital?
Stanford Hospital.
All right. And what do you do as a hospital executive?
I'm responsible for the operations and maintenance and functioning of the medical center.
Now, on June 25th, 2009, were you also a hospital executive?
Yes.
What did you do and where did you work on that day, June 25th, 2009?
I was the chief operating officer for the UCLA hospital system.
All right. And what were your responsibilities as chief operating officer?
I was responsible for the operations of our hospital systems, our multiple hospitals and clinics.
Okay. Tell us, can I, let me, can you give us you work for UCLA Medical Center, is that right?
Correct.
And this is in Los Angeles?
Yes.
Okay. And could you give us a quick layout of the,
Mr. Chernoff's conferring with Ms. Brazil.
Michael, look at. Could you give us a brief rundown, Mr. Amir? Can you give us a brief rundown on the layout of UCLA Medical Center as it existed 2009, June 25th, 2009?
Sure. The medical center is a multi-story hospital with an emergency department on the ground floor, as well as administrative areas, dining commons, basement level that has auditorium and laboratory and support services, and operating suites on the second floor, and inpatient units on the floors above that.
Give us an idea of the it's not just one building, is that right? There are actually several buildings attached to each other?
Well, the inpatient unit is functionally one building, but there's a series of buildings on the campus, including research labs, classrooms, and outpatient buildings.
Where was your office located in the building?
My office was in the administration area, which is on the first floor, the entry-level floor, lobby on the west side of the entrance of the ground floor of the hospital.
This is commonly known as the West Lobby area, or how would it be described by UCLA?
Yeah, it would be the West Lobby. There is a children's welcome wall for our children's hospital, so sometimes it was referred to the children's hospital entrance, but it's on the west side of the lobby.
Okay. And where is the emergency room compared to where your office is in the West Lobby?
The emergency room was through some doors and some hallways, probably a couple hundred feet north of the administration suite.
And how would one go about getting into the emergency room from the West Lobby? Do you have a remembrance of that?
Sure. You would walk through a lobby, enter through some doors, and you would be presented into the emergency room waiting area.
Is it possible to go to the West Lobby from the emergency room by exiting the emergency room in the outside and taking the sidewalk to that area?
Yes.
And how would you go about doing that?
There was doors to the outside from the emergency department and the administration suite, and it's an easy way to traverse as well.
I want to direct your attention to June 25th, 2009, and see if you remember an event there involving the death of Michael Jackson. Do you remember that day?
Yes.
All right. Were you working on that day?
Yes.
All right. And you were working as the COO?
Yes.
All right. And when did you first learn that Michael Jackson had been brought into the emergency room at UCLA?
I had been called from the emergency department and was notified that we had a person of interest and that my assistance might be needed. And he had already been there at the emergency department. The medical team was already doing what they were doing, but I had come over to see if I could help.
Is this a frequent occurrence when you receive a call of a person of interest?
Yeah, or any issue of interest. As the chief operating officer, I get probably hundreds of emails and many calls a day on all kinds of things that are happening. So,
when you were told there was a person of interest, did they tell you who it was?
Not over the page, no.
Okay, but they did tell you where it was?
Yeah, when one of my team members says, I think you should come down here, I usually listen to him.
Okay. And that you went to the emergency room at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
What did you see when you got to the emergency room?
Well, from the emergency department perspective, the emergency department was functioning routinely. Physicians and nurses were taking care of patients and staff, and I was not in the clinical areas per se involved with that. So,
could you give us some idea about the time on the 25th when this occurred?
When what occurred? When he
When you-
actually arrived?
When you went to the emergency room?
I don't recall the precise time, but it was in the afternoon.
Was it before 4? Was it immediately when they brought Michael Jackson in?
No,
Do you know?
no. He was already in a patient room, a trauma room, with staff. I did not go into the room, wasn't there, but so it was after that had occurred.
Okay. What did you happen to look inside the room? Did you happen to see the activity that was going on inside that
No.
that room? What did you observe outside the room? Did you see anything that was going on outside the room?
Well, we wanted to make sure we secured the area for privacy purposes and from security purposes. So those were some of the things that I was involved with.
And security purposes to keep people from coming in, onlookers, that type of thing?
Correct.
And what did you do in response to that? How did you secure the area?
Well, we had security forces, internal, and then called for broader security from campus police and LAPD. We made sure we had privacy shades up covering various window areas. And then eventually we tried to move any additional people who had come in with the event to other areas.
Now, there were people that came in with the event in this case, is that right?
Well, I can't say who came in during the event because I came afterwards, but there was people there when I arrived there.
And were there people that you remember, names that you remember?
There's people whose names I know after the fact, but not at the time did I know who people were.
All right. Who is it that was there when you first came to the emergency room?
Oh, well, when I first came, likely there was security type people, I presumed from Mr. Jackson's staff, security staff, I presumed.
You identified them as security.
Overruled. You may answer. You presume that they were security people?
I presume so, with earpieces and the like. And there was other people, but I didn't per se know who they were.
All right. Did you see any family members at that time?
Later on, there were family members. I can't exactly recall exactly how much later. But
And during that period of time, when you first came to the emergency room, did you see Dr. Murray?
I don't recall seeing Dr. Murray when I first arrived there. I didn't know Dr. Murray was Dr. Murray. I didn't know who anybody was.
Right.
In retrospect, I recall having seen him there briefly as I saw other people there.
All right. How long would you estimate you stayed in the emergency room working this particular issue?
Oh, well, probably initially I would say 45 minutes or so, and I was moving back and forth between the emergency department and then other parts of the hospital, coordinating with other parts of our team in terms of security and media and conference rooms and the kind of things that were clear were going to be needed.
Explain what you were doing with regard to your need for conference rooms. Why did you think that there was a need for conference rooms?
Well, we wanted to have, in the medical area, we try to not have a lot of people back there. So as people were gathering, we wanted to make sure that that was outside the medical area and also to have privacy for family.
All right. And did you arrange for these conference rooms?
In conjunction with the folks in the emergency department and my administrative team,
Okay.
yes.
And just one conference room or more than one?
I believe we had one conference room for police. I believe we had one for family. Those were behind the emergency department. And then we used a conference room by our administration area, our board room for others not directly involved.
All right. Now, this conference room by the administration area, this is in the west lobby area?
Correct.
Is that right? At some point during this process, was there a meeting held in this conference room to discuss a press release?
Yes.
Okay. And who was present in that conference room during that conference? Do you recall?
And I wouldn't say it was a formal conference. The CEO of AEG Live, who I'm not recalling his name, but I recall him giving me his business card, and a gentleman who was with public relations with AEG were working on a press release. Our head of PR at UCLA was there to assist, and at some point in the process, Mr. Jermaine Jackson was there involved as well, and there might have been others in and out of the room. I wasn't per se statically staying in that room, so I'm not exactly sure who in total was there, but those were some of the people who were involved.
You were back and forth from that room?
Back and forth from that room, the administration, checking on the emergency department, checking on the lobby, checking on security at the doors, checking what's going on with media.
During the period of time that discussion was had about this possible press release, do you know what time it was?
Well, it was certainly after the time I had been in the emergency department initially. maybe an hour and a half later.
Was Michael Jackson already pronounced dead?
I don't know. I wasn't involved with the clinical process.
The press release that was ultimately released announced that Michael Jackson was dead, though, right?
If that's what it says, I wasn't involved in writing it, so I would just know that just as anybody else would.
At some point, the press release was given somewhere in UCLA Medical Center?
Yes.
And where was it given?
It was in the basement area. We had an auditorium, have an auditorium there.
And the press release was given by whom? Press statement was given by whom?
Mr. Jermaine Jackson.
All right. This is Michael Jackson's brother.
I believe so, yes.
During this period of time, while there's discussion about this press release in the conference room, first of all, do you recognize this man, Dr. Conrad Murray?
Yes, I recognize Dr. Murray.
Indicating Dr. Murray.
During the period of time while there was conversation about this press release, did you see Dr. Murray?
Briefly, yes.
All right. Where did you see him?
I believe in the conference room.
And when you saw him, what did you observe him to be doing?
I believe the AEG PR people had copies of the press release, and a few folks were reading it, and I believe he looked at it as well.
Do you recall him making any comment after looking at it?
Yes, I believe there was some comment in the press release, something to the effect of potentially stating the reason for death, and I believe he stated, it's not known at this time.
So you do recall the press release talking about the cause of death?
Yes, I recall people talking about that as it was handed out.
Do you remember Dr. Murray's demeanor during this period of time? Do you remember how he appeared to you?
Again, maybe at that point I had known he was a physician, but I didn't really differentiate him from anybody else. He was wearing a T-shirt and jeans. And
physically, he was dressed in T-shirt and jeans. What about?
Yes.
Yes.
Did he appear to be emotional to you?
Well, certainly, I guess I would say looked distressed as was the mood there.
And that was pretty much shared by everybody in the conference room?
Yes.
All right. You talked about the CEO of AEG Live being in this conference room. Does Randy Phillips, the name Randy Phillips, ring a bell?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Mr. Chernoff, thank you. Cross-examination by the people. Mr. Walgren. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Mr. Chernoff made some inquiries about the demeanor that you observed on Dr. Murray. Do you recall telling the police specifically about how Mrs. Jackson, Michael Jackson's mother, was notified about the death of her son?
Yes.
And you told the police that you observed the doctor, Dr. Rochelle Cooper, walk into one of the exam rooms to tell the mom that her son had been declared deceased, correct?
Presumably that's what she was telling her. But yes, I did observe Dr. Cooper going into a room with Ms. Jackson.
And shortly thereafter, as you stood outside the room, you described that you heard the anguish of a mom hearing about her child. And from a personal perspective, it was just not a good thing to hear. Correct?
That's correct.
And that's what you observed about demeanor of Mrs. Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Walgren, thank you. Redirect exam, Mr. Chernoff?
No, thank you.
May Mr. Rubin be excused, Mr. Chernoff?
Yes.
Mr. Walgren?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Rubin, I want to thank you for your testimony. Sir, please don't discuss your testimony or the facts of the case with any other witnesses until the trial is concluded. You may step down. You are excused, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I see counsel? Thank you. Mr. Chernoff, please call your next witness.
Defense calls Randy Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, because of our schedule, in an effort to try to make up a little time, I've suggested to counsel that we right now, you may have to wait a little while to get the lunch on this end, but I know how quickly you eat. So if we're going to be in recess till 1, I'm sure we could be having you eat at 12:55 and you'd be ready because you're just remarkably prompt at eating. But would that be all right with your schedule? We break at 11:30 and come back at 1? Alternate 1? Sure. Do any of you have to use the facilities for a few moments? I always invite you, so go ahead. Alternate number 1. Carefully, please. Thank you. I'm advised. Lunch is already here. Don't tell alternate number 1 when she comes back. I get a little note, a little post-it. Mr. Phillips, you can just have a seat for a moment rather than be standing. Thank you.